Party leaders from across the spectrum were invited to the D-Day commemoration in Portsmouth. After an hour of eyeballing in the studio last night, no eye contact between them today. And for the ceremonial, everyone on best behaviour.
Gentlemen,
Why
please.
do you want to do that to pensioners? Why do you want to put up their taxes?
Today, the biggest fallout from the first leaders' debate was a row about Rishi Sunak's much-repeated tax hike allegation.
Keir Starmer is going to put your taxes up by £2,000. £2,000. £2,000. £2,000 independent Treasury civil servants have costed Labour's policies, and it's £2,000.
Today, Labour brandished a letter from the Treasury's top civil servants saying civil servants were not involved in the production or presentation of the Conservative Party's document, Labour's Tax Rises, or in the calculation of the total figure used.
Well, what's happened here is, it's a classic, they put in pretend Labour policies to the Treasury and then they get a false readout.
But that denial from Keir Starmer was a long time coming. After the debate, shadow cabinet members said it was down to different styles. Rishi Sunak, strident.
What are you going to do with them? I can tell everyone what I'm going to do. You might not like it, but I've got a plan, because we've got to have a deterrent. What are you going to do? Just tell everybody, what are you going to do with illegal migrants who arrive?
Keir Starmer repeatedly showing his frustration.
Since the end of the Cold War.
Do you sometimes see that in meetings? Is that a bit of the Keir Starmer we don't normally see?
Look, what I saw was a man
Rishi Sunak getting under his skin a bit?
No, what I saw was a man that actually follows the rules and tries to do things the right way. He's not going to just shout over other people. He was asking the host, Julie, if he could come in a couple of times because he's a respectful human being, whereas clearly the Prime Minister was pumped.
Back in Portsmouth, the pause in hostilities ended mid-afternoon. The danger of being labelled a tax raiser, so lethal, Keir Starmer upped the rhetoric.
Last night, time and time again, Rishi Sunak was clobbering you over the head with that £2,000 tax line. It took you almost half an hour to call it garbage. What on earth took you so long?
What emerged from last night, and this is a very important takeaway, is that the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, with his back against the wall, desperately trying to defend their record in office, resorted to lies, and he knows he was lying. And I don't say that lightly.
Watching the first TV debate in a pub in Bedford, we assembled some 2019 Tory and Labour voters.
Rishi said several times right at the beginning that Keir and Labour were going to have this £2,000 tax burden on everybody. And it took Keir about 25 minutes to come up with an answer for that. And I just thought, oh, has he just been spending 25 minutes thinking about how am I going to answer that?
I did think Sunak was doing better. He appeared a lot more comfortable than I was expecting him to. And he seemed to be sort of in control, I think, a lot of the time of the dynamic of the debate.
To anyone taking a first look at him last night, Keir Starmer wanted to project himself as tough on issues like immigration and terrorism.
I've taken down terrorist gangs in my past. He's the most liberal Prime Minister we've ever had on immigration.
Rishi Sunak had conducted a liberal immigration policy. Is that now a term of abuse in the Labour Party? Liberal?
No, but we are pointing out that for all the claims of new targets on migration every year, it's actually tripled.
I know what he was pointing out, it's just that word. Liberal that's how Republicans, they spit the word out. Are you going to use it as a term of abuse in future?
Well, I'm more focused on the policy than...
He said, I've taken down terrorist gangs. He made himself sound like a police dog or something.
I am proud he's taken down terrorist gangs. We want to keep people safe in this country.
Keir Starmer went into this debate thinking that he was carrying a Ming vase on a polished floor. Well, that Ming vase was shattered tonight.
You seem very fired up, and yet you're giving up your political career. Is that something to do with the fact you don't think there's going to be a job in government? There's no chance of getting
No. When you have a football team and you've got someone who's an old warhorse, you put them out to grass.
The Lib Dems, for the second general election in a row, were excluded from the head-to-head debate. Today they released an election broadcast, which they said explained why their leader, who has a disabled son, wants carers prioritised.
I like to be the one who gets John up in the morning, so he sees me, I get him up because he can't walk. Come on, my sweetheart, come on, we're going to have some lunch. We have those little games with him because it enables him to speak and to practice communicating.
Rishi Sunak meeting veterans in Portsmouth will pause his campaigning again tomorrow as he, alongside Keir Starmer, goes to Normandy to mark D-Day on the anniversary day itself. We were saying last night that a bad performance from Rishi Sunak in last night's debate would have been seriously destabilising to the Conservative Party campaign, which isn't exactly in great shape thus far. Instead, he actually landed some messages, maybe the tone a little too shrill or shouty for some, but nonetheless, he walked away from this feeling that he had stabilised his party's campaign. And then at 5 o'clock this afternoon, you get an opinion poll suggesting that the Tories are only 2 points ahead of Reform UK. That's a YouGov poll, and it comes just after Nigel Farage has fully re-entered the UK political scene, become leader of his own party again, self-appointed, and running as a candidate. That number might come down a bit, but boy does Rishi Sunak need it to come down. Another effect of Nigel Farage's arrival on the scene, though, is that the scope for pushing the immigration issue for the Tories is more reduced because there's always someone outflanking you on that issue. And I think you're going to see that tax bombshell, the argument that the Tories have deployed in so many elections over the years, the tax bombshell you get if Labour come in, you're going to see them moving much more onto that terrain. Of course, Labour is vehemently denying the numbers that the Tories are throwing around on the potential Labour tax bombshell, but we learned from the Brexit referendum that you can have a disputed number around, and actually the row about that number means it enters the consciousness and becomes very prominent.
Thanks, Gary. Well, our economics correspondent, Helia Ebrahimi, has been looking into this number and these numbers, and it was got by adding up a load of other numbers. So first of all, does it add up?
Well, the Chancellor's team says, yes, this is a very serious piece of analysis, but I think there are questions about the credibility of the arithmetic here. And I think there's been a whole bunch of numbers, as you said, flying around today. It's worth digging into the 3 main problems of this claim. First, are all these 19 policies actually Labour policies? Second, whether these figures are objective Treasury calculations or indeed accurate. And lastly, the reality, Krish, that fiscal drag means that higher taxes are baked into the next Parliament, whoever is in government. But let's start with those 19 policies, because the biggest one of those 19 policies, the most expensive, the Green Prosperity Plan, is not even included in the Treasury calculation. I've got it up on the board there now. And 8 of the 19 policies described by the Conservative claims are being challenged by Labour. I'll give you an example. The dentistry plan is described as costing £166 million. Now, Labour say this is incorrect because it includes the government's own policy of giving dentists a golden hello. I'll give you another example, Krish. Labour's plans to create 42 new health hubs. Well, the Tories say this is going to cost £458 million. Labour says it's not going to cost anything because they're going to use existing infrastructure.
Right, so what about the credibility and what are people saying about it? The people involved?
Well, there are 2 documents flying about. You've got a Jeremy Hunt document here that I've got, and then you've got a much longer, much more nuanced Treasury document. I've only got a sliver of it because I can't carry it all. They're being presented as the same thing, and quite frankly, they're not. Let me tell you how that plays out. In the Jeremy Hunt document on bus service reform, for example, it says that Labour's ideas will cost £3.5 billion. If you look at the Treasury document up on the screen behind you, it says there are different price tags, with Treasury saying there's limited data, and that means there's a high error risk. At the back of that document, it also says that the Department of Transport has weighed in, saying rather unusually, this costing may not be reflective of the actual cost. That's a very strange sentence.
That's just weird. Sorry, well, the costings don't reflect the actual cost.
I mean, exactly. I mean, these documents are not...
Sounds like nonsense.
What is being presented. Now, both parties talk nonsense, Krish. It's not just the Tory party. A lot of what is claimed about each other's tax and spend plans doesn't add up to scrutiny, but it's the extent of Treasury involvement in this that makes it so controversial. Lastly, the Chancellor's team said to me, you know, this is absolutely kosher and these numbers are not cooked up, but clearly it's become very controversial.
Right, well, what about the maths?
Well, even if you buy into all these policies, Krish, you still have to get to that £2,000. And the problem is you have to add up all 4 years to get to that number, that £38 billion number that's going to get into the public consciousnness. And then you have to divide it not by the number of families, but by the number of working families. And those are very unusual choices.
And either way, taxes are going up.
Either way, taxes are going up. If you look at what the ABR says, they say that as a portion of national income, taxes going up from 36% to 37%. Doesn't sound like much, but it represents an increase of about £32 billion. Now, that is all because we're being dragged into higher tax thresholds, dreaded fiscal drag. And while the Prime Minister has pledged that if the Conservatives win, pensioners' thresholds will be increased, he's only U-turning on his own plans. And it's important to remember, Krish, that Labour hasn't matched that pledge, nor has Rachel Reeves agreed to reverse any of the fiscal drag for us. So whatever party you have in government, taxes are going to go up for you and for me.
Thanks, Helia. Well, in Westminster now is Bim Afalami, who is Economic Secretary to the Treasury. Good evening. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this interview?
Of course, Krishna.
Right.
I always do that on your programme, as you know.
OK. In that case, by how much are your plans going to mean the tax burden goes up by?
Well, we've been very clear, as set out in the last budget. And statements subsequent to that. And it's important to be clear with the viewers that, you know, the budget isn't just a political document put out. The budget has Office of Budget Responsibility, civil servants all over it. Those budget plans are there and published for everybody to see.
How much does your tax burden go up by?
Well, actually, it's quite dependent on the nature of economic growth over the next few years. We think that our plans are going to grow the economy. Well, the OBR doesn't. What the OBR has said in relation to different aspects. So, for example, if you take public spending, the OBR said that we will increase public spending by a percentage in real terms.
We've just seen the number. It's 37.1%, isn't it? That's the number you're going to get to.
Well, it really the problem with
let's
that
just
number,
have a yes or no, because I'm really keen on the truth on this. So
well, let me be very clear. The percentage is entirely dependent on how big the economy is going to be.
Yeah.
Forecasts are precisely that. They're forecasts. It's impossible to know exactly the size of the economy. That's why OBR forecasts have been wrong in the past, as have Bank of England.
Prime Minister didn't say that last night, did he? When he came out with his nonsense
to be honest,
figure.
he may not. Well, look, we can talk about the figure separately. All I'm trying to say is you can't give some sort of false precision and say, well, you're definitely going to raise taxes. It will depend on our plans to grow the economy. We're focused on doing that. We have been precise about key things for working people, such as we have already cut national insurance by
no, I don't want to go into all of that just yet. Your friends at The Spectator have used your own methodology to cost your own announced plans, and they've said that if you divide it up between every working family, it would cost £3,000 for every working family. Do you accept that?
No, I don't. I haven't seen that figure at all.
Oh, well, read The Spectator. They've done it the same way you did it. I mean, the point is, this is a dishonest way to present numbers, isn't it?
Well, I'm afraid it isn't, and let me explain why. Because, look, it's important that people fully appreciate this.
I mean, that's what Gus O'Donnell said, the former Cabinet Secretary, man they used to call God, you know. I mean, he's an eminent man, and he said this is thoroughly dishonest.
Well, I've got huge respect for Gus O'Donnell, but what he also said, what I heard him say, was that he has been part of many processes, it's well known in our system, where Treasury civil servants do play a part in costing policies that may be presented by an opposition, right? So he said that he's been part of that before.
He says it's unsavoury and biased.
Well, that's his view, but what I'm saying is it is not a new thing that is going on here. And what we present in terms of that £2,000 number was broadly came from three sources. First of all, Treasury civil servants.
Yeah, we told people what the sources were.
Well, okay, but it's therefore what you, I'm sure, will be interrogating the Labour Party.
The top man at the Treasury says civil servants were not involved in the production or presentation of these
of the overall document. But of course, the civil servants were involved in many of those. A majority of the policy costings that made up the overall figure.
Is that how taxes work then? You get a cost and then you divide it evenly between every working family. Well, that's not how tax works, is it?
I think it's very legitimate for every working family watching this programme to know...
But that's not how you set taxes.
Well, they're the ones who pay. It's working families who pay the price for Labour's tax
Is that how you set taxes? You just divide it up evenly and everybody pays the same? And it's only working families?
Well, working families are the people who pay the bulk of taxes in this country. Yes, they are.
I'm trying to point out how meaningless this figure is, because that's not the way the tax system works.
Well,
and also £2,000 is over 4 years.
Yes, and that the Prime Minister has been very clear about that.
Well, he wasn't.
Well, he's been pretty clear about that, as I have always been. I've never said that it was anything but that.
Aren't you just a little bit embarrassed to be sent out to sort of defend these figures? That you're a clever man, you know it's really misleading. It's just not the way tax works. And, you're playing dirty now. This is a new phase of the election campaign where you're slinging numbers around the way the Brexit campaign did, knowing that some people will believe it, even if it's debunked.
No. What has happened is that Keir Starmer has been rumbled. He was rumbled last night. And because he's been rumbled, the Labour Party has spent all day trying to obfuscate and hide the fact that they have lots of plans, which are perfectly legitimate in politics, but they have not explained how they're going to pay for them. If they say our £2,000 number isn't right, they need to explain how much it is, because we believe, actually the 2,000 is a slight underestimate.
You haven't explained your 3,000 figure.
Well, the 2,000 underestimate, in fact, slight underestimate. What we are saying is that is what the cost would be to every working families, because working families
the point that is not true. Anyway,
working families are the people who pay the price. They're the people who pay taxes in this country.
You don't know what growth's going to be. You don't know what borrowing's going to be. You've just divided up a number and shoved it out there as if it bears any resemblance to reality. Let's move on to the opinion poll that's out tonight that puts Nigel Farage's reform 2 points behind the Conservatives. You are looking at a potential extinction event, aren't you?
I don't believe we are at all. I have long been a sceptic that Reform UK will do anything like what the opinion polls say, and the evidence for that is that in by-elections they have underperformed in every opportunity because Reform UK have no vision for the country. They have no policies. They're just wreckers. They're just negatives. They're recipients of
working for them, though, isn't it?
Well, no. In by-elections they haven't done very well, and I think at the general election they'll do very poorly.
Bim Afalami, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, for more on last night's leaders' debate and whether Rishi Sunak lied about Labour's tax plans, tune in to the latest episode of the Political Forecast podcast.
Rishi Sunak is not the kind of person, he's details orientated, he's not the kind of person who goes out and sort of makes things up without detail. Boris did have a certain turn of phrase sometimes, but Rishi Sunak is into detail, he's into his spreadsheets, and I think people just know that. And that will have come across.
A lie is still a lie.
It's not a lie, Emily, it's not a lie.
Who'll just go,
it's not a lie. It's not a lie.
And you'll get the new one who'll go, let's go away and let's sit down with all the Tory special advisors and let's cook up a really big lie with lots and lots of details in. And we can send out people like Chris Philp and they can try and defend it with their 32-page document. It's still,
24 pages.
Whatever, it's still a lie.
OK.
It's not a lie.
You can watch the Political Forecast on YouTube. It's also at channel4.com/news and wherever you get your podcasts.